request the PA to do whatever you're talking about. The martyrs.
Yeah, the
fund.
approach. So the approach that I think the UK takes is one I would prefer, which is where it's not like all or nothing with all the aid, because I think if you do that, you're just going to end up dropping all your chips immediately. What I would prefer is like taking different shipments and different trade deals and different exchanges and thinking if this particular shipment or this particular portion of aid or support or trade will be reconsidered if you don't adhere to this policy. So
Testing 1, 2, 3. Hello.
hello.
Good sir, can you hear me?
Yeah, 1 second. I'm just gonna. Whoa, what the fuck is that? Oh, Discord is like embedding itself into my OBS even when I don't ask it to. That's weird. Okay.
Oh, nice.
It's not nice. It's making a little image. It's
terrible.
freaking me out. Yeah, it is terrible. Thank you. You got my back. Okay, let's see.
My camera on?
No, it's like a constant loading screen for me. Yeah, it's giving me the constant.
I see you. Yeah. Okay, hold on. I think I know what it is. Hold on. Ahora?
Okay, that seems better.
Hello, sir.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. Hold on, let me fix this real quick. I think that's good. Hold on, testing. What do you think? Can you say something?
Hello. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
10's good. Hello, sir.
Hey.
We've not interacted for some time.
Have we spoken before, or like on?
Well, we spoke on the same panel. Probably more than a year ago.
Okay, what were we talking about?
I think it was something about Trump and a Supreme Court ruling of one kind or another, but I don't exactly remember.
Oh, that would have been a long time ago.
It would have been a long time ago. I reached out because of several of my viewers, who I assume are also your viewers, said you are the person with the most reasonable take on the Holy Land of Israel.
Yeah, or the most genocidal or the most terrorist one, depends who you ask. Yeah.
That's fair. Are you familiar with any of my stuff, or just so I don't know? I've listened to a couple of clips of yours. I'm not super familiar.
Yeah, I've watched I watched a little bit every now and then, but more nothing about this. No, I thought it would be better just to leave things open because I know that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I don't really want to go by like prejudgments or anything like that.
That's great. Okay, well, maybe we can theory craft the radical centrist solution to the war in the Middle East.
Okay.
My position has always been, I think the United States should cut off aid to Israel unless it removes the settlers from the West Bank. What do you think of that?
No, I don't think that's a good start for many reasons. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you agree that the settlers in the West Bank are a problem?
No, they're a huge problem. Yeah.
Okay. Do you agree that they are one of the primary sources of antagonism for the entire region? Like one of the primary sources of inflammation of all of the hostilities in the Middle East?
Yeah.
Okay. So why do you not think that we should aid Israel by providing the anti-settler faction in Israel, which is significant, the ammunition, not the real ammunition, but the political ammunition to say, hey, now we have 30, the policy could be something like you have 30 days to remove the settlers from the West Bank, or we begin cutting off aid and military shipments.
Because if
Why would that
you
not be a good idea?
because if you lay down that offer, you're just going to cut off all the aid. You're not going to get Israel to remove 500,000 settlers from the West Bank, especially it'd be 750,000 if you count East Jerusalem. Um, that's one reason. It's like you're just skipping one step. You're not going to get any settlers removed. You're just going to cut aid to Israel, and then all the leverage is gone. Second,
Okay.
um, this has been an issue in the past when America starts to like overextend demands to Israel that even haven't been made by Palestinians. So I don't know if you know about Obama and Abbas in late 2000s, but Obama did push Israel for a settlement freeze after there's just a freeze to expanding or building new settlements, and it was in exchange for I think entering into like some kind of like truce or peace talks with the PA. The problem was that even Abbas hadn't made that offer. So already you had this issue where the PA was given effectively something like a big concession for free that even they hadn't asked for, and then like the whole dynamic of the negotiation was a little bit confused. I think America can do things that are a bit more realistic, like stopping them from recognizing the new settlements that they've just done, or pushing them to start dismantling outposts, or pushing them to um, even to just to stop expanding outposts, or like don't recognize any new
Okay.
ones. Yeah, things like that, or deal with
That's
crimes. But
okay.
they have to also be considered within the framework of the negotiations with the Palestinian leaders as well.
Okay, so then would you agree? Let's modify the policy. We cut
Mhm.
off aid to Israel if they allow or legalize any new settlements, starting whatever tomorrow.
When we keep jumping to cut off all aid in exchange for these demands, so you're willing to
Mhm.
accept that America drops every bit of leverage it can to make any difference in the region if they don't make this one specific concession.
If they continue to do what I regard as the single most antagonistic action, which is allowing the illegal settlements to continue, it's precisely what the U.S. should do to exercise its leverage. I mean, what do you think the average Israeli cares about more? New settlements in the West Bank or U.S. support?
I think they care about US support more. Yeah.
Right. So if we give them the ultimatum, it's up to them then to decide what's more important to them.
Yeah, but then I guess the government is probably just going to choose to fuck off the aid. I think in terms of
What
expanding new settlements.
what is the support? What is the I haven't checked it last. What is the support for expansion of new settlements in Israel? Do we know?
It's higher than it's been in the past, but I don't know how high it is right now. No, I'd imagine it's still under half for expanding new ones.
Yeah.
I think what would, and again, you've got an issue where it's not even the problem with Israelis and negotiation with Palestinians, and in terms of settlements, it's not just that like they say the people who oppose expanding settlements, it's not that they are willing to give up America to allow settlements to continue in the West Bank. It's that they don't like the idea of concessions being given to the Palestinian side for free from America without any similar ultimatum or any demand on the other side. So they might
Okay.
say, like, why are you asking us to dismantle settlements, but you're not asking for the PA to crack down on Hamas and PIJ in the West Bank, or why are you not asking them to alter the martyrs payment policy to exclude people who have died engaging in terrorism, like things like that.
Okay. Would you support then the U.S. policy if that was part of it? It says we will cut off aid to Israel if they continue to expand new settlements, and we'll also request Hamas to do or request the PA to do whatever you're talking about, the
Yeah,
Martyrs
the
Fund.
approach. So the approach that I think the UK takes is one I would prefer, which is where it's not like all or nothing with all the aid, because I think if you do that, you're just going to end up dropping all your chips immediately. What I would prefer is like taking different shipments and different trade deals and different like exchanges and thinking if this particular shipment or this particular portion of aid or support or trade will be like reconsidered if you don't adhere to this policy. So with the UK, it was weapons shipments that they thought they couldn't guarantee that they wouldn't be used for committing crimes, for committing war crimes. So they reviewed a very specific part of the aid. So with America, I think if there is any American aid or funding that is beneficial to the settlement projects, even if it's got other uses, then I think like threatening to withhold things like that is more useful. Yeah.
Okay, well, I suppose it's a matter of degree. It depends on how surgical. I don't see the issue with like this is you say, well, we don't want to drop aid to Israel because we'll lose our leverage. It's like,
Hmm.
what's the point of what leverage do we have now that we're using that if we have leverage, we should use it to do the single most obvious thing that would turn down the temperature in the region, which is stopping the settlements in the West Bank. And so the fact that we're not doing it, it's like, well, then what's the point of having leverage?
Because we would not be any closer to a peace process tomorrow if all the settlements were just halted indefinitely, right? We would not be any closer because there needs to
Okay,
be
I think
like
I
there
would.
needs to be the
That seems
development of
unlikely.
a that you think that seems unlikely.
If this, I guess I don't know how bad you think I think the settlements are like horrific,
Hmm.
and I think the settlers are. I think the not every settler, obviously, but many on the Israeli far right are as morally decrepit as Hamas. You would agree with that?
Are settlers as morally decrepit as Hamas?
The settlers that chant death to Arabs
Uh-huh.
are as bad as the Hamas people who chant death to Jews, right? We agree.
In terms of that chant, sure. I don't recall settlers
They're as
ever doing an
morally
attack that
decrepit.
was the same as October 7th, though. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Not in one instance, but ho what are the numbers in terms of settler killings, in the West Bank over the course
That's
of
fairly hard to say because usually, like, I think every year there's about between 150 and 250 pre-October 7th deaths in the West Bank. But to get a breakdown over how many of them were IDF killings of terrorists or IDF killings of civilians or settler killings of civilians or like fights that took place, yeah, that's really hard to split up. But like going quite, the highest estimate would be about 200, 250.
per year?
Yeah, although it's almost definitely
Over
lower than
how
that
many
for just
years?
specific settler killings of civilians.
Okay, over how many years?
Um, so the settler violence, that's hard to say because like since I don't know what the death rate was on the West Bank since like the 6 Day War. We could look it up though, if you want. Deaths in the West
Yeah,
Bank
I
per
don't know. I
year
don't know the
wartime.
numbers.
Okay. And this, you'd also be including like defensive shield, which was nothing to do with settler violence. So that's a really difficult thing to gauge. Um,
Okay, well then
yeah, I think okay,
okay.
if we're gonna go with settler killings, I don't know. I would average it to maybe like settlers actually murdering people is probably. I'd imagine it's actually the minority of deaths in the West Bank. Most deaths in the West Bank, I think, are by the IDF.
Sure, but like you
So
said, you have to combine the fact the IDF protects the settlers and it overlaps.
um, it overlaps. But when the IDF is actually killing people in the West Bank, it's usually not when they're defending settlers. It's usually when they're doing raids. But in any case,
Sure, but they also are defending
let's
settlers,
say the settlers took like 10 or 20 years to kill 1,000 people. You also have to be factoring in like the fact that settlers do this with a lot less restraint and a lot less limitations than Hamas has. And then you have to, if we went back 20 years or 25 years, you'd have to include all of Hamas's killings by the Second Intifada. So yeah, no, I don't think it's very controversial to say that Hamas are worse than settlers.
well, yeah, you don't think it's controversial to say the Hamas are no, I'm talking the type of no, I'm not talking about the scale because then you can also get into discussion on October 7th. Well, what half of those this is what Muin Rabbani's point. Half of those people that died on October 7th were military combatants. And so you know,
It wasn't half, not even close. It was like, I think 1,200 were killed and I think 800 were
right?
civilians. It wasn't half.
Okay, so what was it 400?
Something like that. But then also that
Okay,
doesn't
so
tell you that much
30%.
about that doesn't tell you all that much about Hamas's intentions either, though, right? Because the reason Hamas killed that proportion of militants
Okay,
was because they were breaking through the militants to get to the civilians. So, like, we know what Hamas would do if they had free reign over Israel proper, right? They would be
yeah.
they'd be murdering like scores and scores and
And
scores times more than the settlers do in the West Bank.
I think that's no, I don't believe that.
You
Like
don't think so?
Ben Gavir, do you agree that Ben Gavir is as bad as any Hamas member?
No. I think
Ben,
Ben
okay.
Gavir is insane. He's horrible.
You think that
It's
if Ben Gavir, you want to talk about intentions, you think if Ben Gavir was prime minister, let's say, You think that he would have better intentions for Hamas than Hamas does for Israel?
He would have better
That's
intentions for Hamas, you're saying?
I'm asking you, do you think Ben Gvir's attitude, if Ben Gvir were prime minister and he
Mhm.
were ordering the IDF around,
Oh,
do you
okay,
think
yeah.
Ben Gvir would be treating the Palestinians better than Hamas treats Israel?
Yeah, that would probably be a tight contest. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not even remotely. It's clear he's beyond insane, and I don't know why you're expressing
Well, he
hesitance
is
on that.
beyond insane. It's just that he has a lot more, and throughout his career, he's had a lot more access to be able to enact the actions that he might want to in the West Bank. Like he controls the police, or he like arms
Right.
settlers
Yeah.
himself, right? But again, I don't
Right.
think I've ever seen him or people with him do the same level of violence as him. Like maybe back in the day
Right,
with
because
Baruch
there's all
Goldstein, maybe,
correct.
but
Because there's
yeah.
all kinds of left-wing elements in Israel that are restraining him. But the idea that Ben Gvir is not as morally decrepit as Sinwar, I think is I don't understand
I
how
mean,
someone
Sinwar's
could
murdered
say
people with his
that.
bare hands. Ben Gvir, as far as I know, hasn't.
Okay, well, Adolf Hitler never shot anyone himself, as far as I know.
Okay. Although he
So
actually
we're
like
not
signed orders for killing people and the tens and hundreds of thousands, all right? And
okay.
those are
And
just the
what
ones
has
that he
Ben?
wrote down. So
Okay, and are you doubting that Ben Gvir would not do that with Hamas or with Palestinians?
I don't know. That's why I'm saying so. Like,
Ben
if I'm gonna
Gvir
give,
had,
if I'm gonna extend like the
as
most
you
charity,
know,
I would say like, yeah, it might be a tight contest, but I don't know.
I think it's the most charity to even pretend that there is even a contest there. Ben Gvir had a shrine to Baruch Goldstein in his living room,
Hmm.
right? And then you're saying, well, maybe I don't know what his intentions are. Like he might not be as he might be not as bad as Sinwar.
No, I know what his intentions are. Okay, I'm just
Okay, so you agree that morally he's as decrepit as Hamas in terms of his intentions. Obviously, of course, yes, he himself is not in charge. He left the cabinet in the last couple months or whatnot, so he doesn't have political power right now.
mhm.
But I'm talking about in terms of the moral. If we're evaluating the morality of either side of the conflict, I do not understand at all how anyone can claim that the subtler. I'm not even saying it's the same proportion. I wouldn't say it's the same proportion. Like Islamism versus radical Judaism. It's like obviously Islamism is more by kill count, way worse for not only Jews, for Muslims. Um, but I'm evaluating the moral character of either side and whether or not these people like are allies or enemies. And it's like Ben Gvir and that entire wing of the Israeli public and government is an enemy of the United States morally. Maybe I
Mhm.
shouldn't say enemy of the United States. Is as more we should treat them with the same perspective we have with Hamas. Sure, they can be negotiated with, but they are morally disgusting, and we should call them out for that, right?
What, people like Ben Gvir and Smotrich?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah, the
Okay.
only reason I'm saying is that it's a tight contest is that I think it's not as clear as you're making it out to be is because Ben Gvir has been in positions of power that give him the ability to inflict a lot more damage than someone like Sinwar, and he hasn't done it. And but Sinwar
That's
and
because
Hamas did more
right,
with
because
less.
yes, because there's a massive left-wing element that restrains
No, no, I'm
Ben
not even
Gvir that is
talking about
not
the. I'm not
present
even
in
talking
that's
about the
not
massive left
present
wing
in
presence. I'm
Hamas.
talking about the ability that he has. Ben Gvir like has the
What? He was
power
the
to.
Minister of National Security.
Mhm.
So what is the power that he has? I know he
He also has the like
oversees the West Bank.
he's distributed arms in the settlements. He could literally go to find a
Okay.
Palestinian village and like again because again Sinwar like Hamas are willing to break the law and risk jail to do what they want. Ben Gvir could have done the same. He could have like risked jail to go and do like a fucking
It-
like a
he-
pogrom of like hundreds of people in a particular village in the West Bank. He could have gone there. He could have armed everyone. He could have said, "Okay, let's go. Let's just kill as many people as we can, and then I'll just take the jail time." Like he could have done that. Hamas does
and what
that.
is that
Ben
evidence
Gvir
of?
didn't.
That's evidence that he has good intentions, or he recognizes
No,
that
not that
if
he
he
has good
did that, it would
intentions.
undermine his
Just
abilities.
no, not that he has good intentions. Just that he has like that he, with the power that he's had, seems to have been less uh, intent on just
Has
going
been
out and like
more
mass murdering.
restrained.
Yeah, he's been restrained. Yeah.
Yeah, not by him. He would do it. Do you disagree that? Hold on. Do you disagree that if Ben Gvir was in power, he would be annihilating the people in Gaza far worse than they're being annihilated now?
Oh yeah, he would. Yeah.
Okay, so this is my point. My point is simple. my tax dollars as an American
Hmm.
should not be doing anything that empowers Ben Gvir, because I think that that is the single biggest risk to Israel's security, is the continued increase of settlers, people who support Ben Gvir, and the Palestinians and the Arab countries see that and go, well, clearly Israel's not doing anything to mitigate this. So the U.S. should exercise its leverage and say, okay, we're going to give Israel an ultimatum. They care, you said, and it's obvious, they care more about U.S. support than expanding settlers. So give them the ultimatum, put the agency on them, and go from there. And you say, well, there's nothing that Israel can do that would risk cutting off the aid to them. It's like, is there what would be a line too far? What would be a line too far where it would be appropriate to cut off aid to Israel?
Excuse me. A line appropriate to cut aid, if any attempt at leveraging portions of aid in exchange for some concessions was just like useless. Like if there was not really any indication that America could convince Israel to do anything good, like, or anything better.
Okay, what we had, okay, other than the attempt in Obama, which
Mhm.
my understanding was weak-kneed and immediately fucking turned around on, it's like, then let's do it. Let's make the attempt. We'll say, hey, Israel, you have 30 days to dismantle the outposts, to jail people who are, moving beyond whatever zones A and B, or whatever the. If we're going to modify the policy to say no new settlements, we say no new settlements. You have 30 days to implement this policy. If after 30 days a single new settlement shows up,
Mm-hmm.
we're cutting off aid. Your F-16s are getting turned off. Why? That is a perfect example of using our leverage to help ameliorate the single most antagonistic action going on in the Middle East that could be stopped tomorrow, and is in the interest of Israel's security. It's in the interest of the Arab countries. The only people whose interests it's in are the religious Jewish supremacist psychopaths, which we don't care about.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we do that?
Oh, because you're just going to cut off all the aid. Like they're not going to do that. They're not going to
Okay,
do
then what?
it.
Okay, fine.
You'd have to attach.
Okay,
You'd have to attach concessions on the other side. You'd have to. There's a lot of steps. I agree with like your goal. That's the thing. I agree with all the settlers getting
sure,
fucked
yeah.
off. The thing I disagree with is like you need to find a method for it that actually works. And the problem now is that the reason we don't get any advances like this is not just because America's not demanding enough of Israel, or even because Israel's not necessarily like got the desire to do enough themselves. It's also the fact that the purpose of evacuating settlers and dismantling outposts is to make a two-state solution more viable. The problem is that for a very long time now, there hasn't really been any indication that any Palestinian leader can get the support from their people to pursue a two-state solution. So Abbas holds on to power only through authoritarianism, right? And even when he had the chance to, he walked away from a peace offer that would have seen a lot of settlers evacuated. So the problem is that you're going to see Israel thinking, what's the point in us making all these concessions when there's not a leader on the other side who's actually willing to accept them? And that's where you're going to get into an issue.
Okay, one of the ways that you can, if you're talking about negotiation, you have to show good faith from one side or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe part of the reason that there's no one in the West Bank who's willing to negotiate is because they feel like America writes a blank check to Israel. But if we can demonstrate, hey, we actually won't just allow this complete nonsense bullshit to go on. We actually do believe Ben Gvir is as bad as the Hamas people, and we're willing to prove it by cutting off aid if they continue to expand new settlements. Well, then that opens up new opportunities to negotiate, and you have no reason, not no reason, but it's not necessarily the case that if we take the first action of goodwill and do the thing that most Israelis believe we should do, and the most Arabs believe we should do, is stop expanding the settlements and have the U.S. aid back that up. I would say that's a good first step in showing good faith to continue to bring about potential negotiations. You say, well, historically it's all gone down to shit and all that. It's like, okay, sure, that's what they said prior to the end of the Troubles,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, okay, well, someone has we have to do something. We have leverage over Israel. This seems like the perfect opportunity to use it. And I just don't you say, because what'll happen is they'll say no, which you don't know. And again, I don't know how confident, if most of the Israeli public is against it, then all it does is further the political will and expediency of saying, okay, now we for sure have to stop the settlements. Because now, if we don't stop the settlements, we lose U.S. military support,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just a line we're not willing to cross as regular Israelis. So it's perfectly plausible that they actually do follow through and cut off the new settlements. But let's say they don't. Okay, then we cut off aid, and then what happens? We say, okay, we'll give you your aid back if you tear down the new settlements or something. I don't understand. I'm not saying it's guaranteed to work,
Mm-hmm.
but do you agree that it's possible that actually could be? It's perfectly plausible that that is the right foreign policy that America should pursue.
Um, in an in a vacuum, like just
No,
those
not in a
two things.
vacuum.
No, I mean in
In
those
reality.
in those two things. I mean in a vacuum is in just those two things, like without anything else attached to it. I think it's like yeah, it's 100% that it would be a no. But to get the
Okay.
uh, I do agree. Like, so the when I talk about America using its influence, and I don't think they have used it enough. Biden didn't use it enough. Obama didn't use it enough. I think it needs to be in a place that's like very focused, and it's also willing to acknowledge that that despite the military and political power imbalance, that Palestinians have a lot more agency and say over how this conflict can go than I think a lot of people give them credit for. So if they were going to go to Israel, I think one thing that could be done is review American aid to Israel, find aid that is in any way bolstering settler infrastructure, even if it's just like green line stuff or like the expansion of settlements in any way, and then say, or even weaponry that goes towards like IDF brigades that work in the West Bank, right? And just saying like this is under threat, and if you don't, and if you don't reverse this recent decision, for example, recognizing 22 new settlements for expansion, then that's going to be reviewed and probably axed. I think that can probably lead to a lot more concessions but then also would have to be in line with getting a concession out of the PA as well, which would probably be like reforming the martyrdom fund.
Yeah, I think the problem with that is it doesn't address the fundamental issue, which is you need to bolster the left-wing case in Israel against the settlers. There cannot be long-term peace and stability if the Israeli far right, continues to become antagonistic. And your solution is well, we'll do all these little things and we won't greenlight settlements. It's like, but that doesn't put the ultimatum to Israel to say, hey, you have to make a choice, settlers or USA to Israel. Your solution specifically doesn't do that. And my point is, for the long-term stability of the region, the Israeli left has to win out, and I think we need to provide them the ultimatum to do that. Now, it's a hypothetical, and we don't know, but
So first of
do
all,
you
I
have any
think
other
what I'm
thoughts?
saying, what I'm saying would be more likely to bolster the left wing because it's still like it's a policy proposal that's actually being done within reason. It achieves a left wing outcome. Left wingers in Israel would support it, and actually, even with the situation that's happening right now, which is like America is making more like modest demands of Israel. Even with Trump, I think the one modest demand that he made finally was to call for aid to go in. Right, that Trump did actually push that to some degree, and throughout America doing what it's been doing now, the left wing in Israel has been growing in relation to the government. Like the opposition is growing in popularity and the government is shrinking. So what you're saying, I would argue with the opposite. I would actually argue that what you're saying would bolster the right in Israel because the right wing in Israel, their whole thing is to tell the Israeli public that the Western world cannot be relied upon. They're going to make extortionate and disproportionate demands towards us. They're not going to hold the Palestinian leadership accountable, and we are better off without them. And the right wing loves to spread that message. They love spreading the message that like this sort of like pro-Palestine student protest movement is like infecting all the way up to the U.S. government. They make the case that it affected Biden as well. So yeah, that's quite dangerous too. Is like the right wingers being able to convince Israeli Jews that that country is actually on their own, because as soon as they feel that way, then the right wing is going to explode. Right?
I think that's wrong. I think that the right wing, Benny Morris specifically, this is the broader issue that we need to get out. And I've already said my piece. Again, I don't know. Neither of us know what the future is in terms of what policy would be pushed. It's hard for me to believe that, like you said, the left wing. What percent does the opposition have in the Knesset now?
In the Knesset now, they're not a high percentage, but in terms of polling, I think
Polling?
they've been over. Did they overtake the government now? opposition vote. Opposition. Yeah, it's still got a lead over Netanyahu. It's maintaining it for the last couple of months.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I just don't see it. Just if that's the case, then now's the time to say yes. We're cutting off U.S. You're cutting off aid to Israel unless you move the settlements, and the left wing can say, "Hey guys, either we continue to have U.S. aid, not USAID, but U.S. military
Yeah,
aid,
yeah.
or we continue the settlements." And it's just, I don't know. We don't know. But to your point, how do we stop the far right from growing in Israel, or rather, what is the future of the far right in Israel? Benny Morris has pointed out specifically that the far right religious Zionist, religious fundamentalist, more Jewish supremacist end of the spectrum, they have way more kids than the left wing secular Israelis. And the trend is rapidly growing that it's going to be more and more and more. The far right people are gaining power. So like in 10 to 20 years, the Ben Gvirs could very well be in charge of Israel.
Okay.
Do you agree with that?
Potentially, I have no idea. With I think it might take longer than 10 years, but yeah, they are obviously growing quite fast.
Sure, 20, yeah,
It's
20,
like
30
there's
years.
like a demographic crisis in Israel with that. Yeah.
If Ben Gvir and that broad ethos became the dominant power in Israeli government, and let's say they stated explicitly their goals to pursue a greater Israel project, would you agree then that the United States should view them as a adversary instead of an ally?
I don't know what you mean by adversary, but like probably I would say,
Like we should be
yeah,
doing
like
things to restrain Israel's power instead of assisting it. We should be sanctioning them. We should be building relations with Turkey and Egypt and, stuff to constrain Israel's power.
yeah, again, so I'll refer you back to what I just said earlier. Like, I think if it gets to a point where no amount of American anything can achieve any concessions, then yeah, then that would be a time to just disconnect completely. Yeah.
All right. Well, it sounds like we agree.
Yeah, I think we agree on the principle. It's just in terms of like the scale and the specifics. Like, I don't think we're going to cut off aid or you like because it started with we're going to cut off aid and
Devil's
you
in the details.
evacuate
Yeah.
all the settlers. Like when it came to that first one, like when it was like, yeah, we'll cut off aid unless you evacuate all the settlers. To me, I think that's never happening. Like that's just we're cutting off aid. That's it.
Well,
But
yeah,
then if it
it would
became
depend on the
stop,
areas.
yeah,
Like,
but then it became like stop new settlements, or then maybe focusing on outposts. Then yeah, I think there's more of a conversation there. But yeah, it's just that. But in terms of the
all right.
principle, yeah, of course, I think America should use their influence to rein in the worst excesses of like the Israeli government. Yeah, of course they should.
Of course they should. I agree. Yeah, there's no disagreement. Um. Okay. Do you agree with the statement that Israel is an apartheid state?
No. I think what they do in the West Bank, easily you can call apartheid. Israel proper, no. Gaza is its own situation. Like, yeah,
Okay, but
I would
so
put it
what's
more
going on in the
specific to
West
West
Bank
Bank.
is West Bank is apartheid?
Yeah, or you could say it's tantamount to
Okay.
apartheid. Yeah,
That's fine. Then it's just semantics. That
yeah.
I would, because Israel is the um has jurisdiction over the West Bank.
Hmm.
I would put them as an apartheid state, but I guess it's a semantic thing at that point. That's fine. Because I was surprised. I was talking to a rabbi who himself said, "Yeah, of course Israel's an apartheid state. How could anyone dispute that?" And I was like, "Oh, interesting. How quickly pro-Israel people are quick to admit that." Because I constantly hear that it's a lie that Israel's an apartheid state, and I'm like, okay, well now I know I don't have to trust that person. Anyone who denies the apartheid element in Israel is not a reliable person on the subject.
It depends on how they deny it. They could argue that legally it's more of it's an occupation more than apartheid because it's occupied territory that where that was captured in a war where that side of the country, where the West Bank, the attack came from Jordan before Israel went in, and that's where the occupation started. But like that's just a legal differentiation. In terms of like if you want to look at the internal structure, like the checkpoints and the division of the fact that the citizenship rights and the road access and who gets a better time at the fucking checkpoints and all that, and yeah, like why you would split hairs with comparing that to apartheid, I think is a bit silly.
Okay, yeah, I guess I'm not really sure what we disagree on exactly then. d- uh, Yishai Fleischer, what percent of the Israeli public do you think he represents?
Like less than 5.
Less than five?
Yeah, because if you look at, well, he's like a Ben Gvir ally, right? So if Ben
Yeah,
Gvir and Smotrich's parties combined get about just under 10% of the vote, so it would be 5 or less for Ben Gvir. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's 10% for the Jewish Power Party and the religious Zionists. Um, Although they're in coalition with Likud, so it's not obvious what the distinction is. Um, okay, well, that's my point. Is like the Yishai Fleischers is not who we should be centering our foreign policy. It just seems, it seems. I trust that there's enough reasonable Israelis who are like, yeah, they're the ones who want the settlements torn down, and the American uh, ultimatum is just cherry on the top. But yeah, that's fair. All right, well, maybe I don't know
Did you
what
have
else
any
we would
other
disagree
like
on.
um I don't know, so if we're talking about the conflict in general, like do you what your motivation for wanting to cut arms to Israel, is that like is the main principle there in like do you think America should be cutting support for countries that it currently supports in general? Like is there like an isolationist principle in there, or is it just about wanting to have allies
It's a
that
combination of
are
things. I mean, it's a combination of things. I mean, I think
okay?
what's going on in Gaza is immoral,
Mhm.
and I think also it's not in our strategic interests. It's a combination of both because, we obviously aren't moral actors in every sense, and we're not really doing much in Sudan. Um, but I just don't like the degree to which Israel exerts influence over the United States, foreign policy in particular. Although Trump appears to be bucking that trend with all the obstacles he's putting up with Netanyahu. So yeah, I just don't think we should get into a war with Iran under any circumstances. That would be one thing. But also, yeah, I think it's immoral. I think long term, it's in America's national security interests to normalize relationships with the Muslim world. That's like a long term strategic goal. And I think our blind, unconditional support of Israel, stated by many people in government that Israel has a biblical right to the land, so on and so forth. Um, I think that's bad. I think that's getting in the way of our long-term strategic interests, which is the normalization of Arab and U.S. or Muslim U.S. relations.
Okay. Why did you
Is
say,
that fair?
do you think Trump is bucking in what way is Trump bucking the trend? I'm curious about that, about like uncritical support for Israel.
No, in terms of not going along with Netanyahu's strikes in Iran that he told him not to do, and
Is that
all the
bucking
shit
the,
that Ben Shapiro complains about. Maybe not bucking the trend, but
yeah, because I
Trump
would say
is Trump is not.
that's joining the trend, right? Because most presidents disappoint Israel and Iran, right? Like Israel's
Yeah,
wanted
but I don't.
America to help bombing the
Sure,
nuclear sites for like decades, you know, so
true.
Trump has
Okay,
just kind of
fine,
wanted
but
many, yeah.
sure. Um, but my point is, it's to the degree that he continues to do that, that's good, and I support that, and that's sort of my general foreign policy view on that. What do you think of that? Do you think that's a ridiculous view? Should I be hating Arabs or what?
I don't, I don't know.
That was a joke.
Yeah,
Do
okay.
you think my
I was going to say
stance of
Iranians
it's
aren't Arab, but yeah, never mind.
in the long everyone in the Middle East is Arab now?
Okay.
Do you think it's in the interests of? Do you think a strategic goal of the United States being normalized relationships with the Muslim world is a good strategic goal?
To normalize for America to normalize relations with the Arab Muslim world.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
There we go. And I think all of these Israeli Jewish supremacist settlers are getting in the way of that. So anything we can do
So
to
I think
stop them.
we probably disagree on the idea that like settlers are the root of any of this issue. Um,
Okay, I think they're definitely the root of some of it.
Yeah, I think if all
or
settlers
at
were
least
gone
maybe.
tomorrow, I still think there would be unresolved issues in Israel Palestine. Like,
Well, of
yeah,
course,
the
it'd be
conflict,
unresolved, but
as in like the
the
conflict would still
situation
be
would.
not that. I don't think it would be massively different. There would obviously be a lot
Oh, I
less
think.
like
Okay, well,
antagonism and footage, but all that. But like, yeah, no, I think we know this from peace
it's a hypothetical.
processes. Yeah, but we know this
No,
from the peace
but
process, right? Like the big sticking
yeah.
points at the end of the day were not necessarily settlement related, right? They were right of return and like the Temple Mount. Neither of these are
I'm
much to do
viewing
with
it.
settlements.
I'm viewing it from the psychological perspective of the Palestinian and of the Israeli. It's like, well, what? Because we're at a point now where it's like, well, how do we even have peace with the Palestinian? The Palestinian psyche is so fucking saturated now because of Israel and the Islamism both putting pressure on it to just hate Israel forever. And so the only way that you can get to a possibility, this is a psychological point I'm making, is that the only way you can get to a point where the Palestinians even consider long-term peace is if they feel a sense of justice has been provided. And I mean, the ultimate, this is unrealistic, I think, although, not out of the realm of physical possibility, but, like in an ideal world, you would have like a U.S., Saudi, Jordanian court, I don't know, um, try and mete out whatever justice is appropriate for both the Hamas leadership and the Israeli settlers and the people in the IDF who are committing war crimes. And then once both of them are tried in the same court in the same playing field, then there can be a sense of justice that would kickstart the okay, well, we can maybe at least consider a possibility of a two-state solution. And I think if like, for example, if like, I agree that this is not necessarily tenable, but if it was the case that the U.S., like, let's say, I don't know, Trump listened to Kanye's new song tomorrow and came out and said, I fully support Palestine and I hate Israel.
Mhm.
And tomorrow he said, not only are we cutting off aid to Israel, we're going to bomb the Israeli settlements unless they get them out in a week or something like that. I think the idea that wouldn't dramatically change the Palestinian mindset, I think it would. It's a hypothetical, of course. But if the Palestinians saw a concerted 180 of like, oh shit, the U.S. is not just going to suck Israel's eggs all the time, I believe that would kickstart a potential big difference in their willingness to negotiate. And you say, well, but historically, look at it. It's like, well, this would be an unprecedented historical move. So
It's not, yeah, you're right that it's unprecedented, but it's mapping onto certain measures that have actually happened in the past. The problem is that getting this kind of like disproportionate or like unilateral almost concession from Israel historically, and again, this would be a unilateral concession of Israel, of America, like bombing settlements until till
all right,
the
that was
settlers get out.
I cited that as the extreme one. Stick to the
Well,
point of
even if
cutting
we
off
use
aid until
your
we got rid of them.
yeah, even if we use your actual one, cut aid until they remove all the settlers. The one faction that claims victory over that is Hamas because the
No, it's go
yes,
ahead.
it is because I don't know if you've seen much of like the statements that Hamas leaders are making on like Al Jazeera and different interviews right now. Is they're saying that when they talk about the death toll being as high as it is, they refer to it as like either a necessary or like an advantageous sacrifice because the amount of suffering that's taken place in Gaza and the amount of attention that's getting drawn to it is isolating Israel on the world stage. And Hamas, that's why they're still carrying on, right? They don't expect to win, but they do expect to win in the sense that if they can keep things like this going on, the damage that gets done to Israel internationally and diplomatically is worth that cost to a lot of them. So if you get like a U-turn from America onto Israel and it's like a very unilateral, like just do this or we cut aid, then Hamas is going to view that, and rightly so, actually, as a success from October 7th. Because why is everyone talking about Israel right now? Why are so many countries going hard against
Yeah.
Israel right now?
Yeah.
It's because of the aftermath of October 7th and Hamas have like
Okay.
with their willingness to continue standing fast, right, standing firm.
Okay. Two things. You keep calling it a concession. You agree the Israeli left wants this. It's not a concession from Israel.
The Israeli
It's a
left wants
unilateral.
this, but they don't want they
to
don't want
get the
this in the
aid cut
sense.
off.
No, they yeah, but they don't want this in the sense that it comes at the cost of losing all of your international support. I don't know. Maybe we can find some Israeli leftists and ask them what they think about that. But I guarantee they
How
don't
would
want.
how would how we're if we give an ultimatum, let's say we give the ultimatum, get the settlers out, or we cut off aid. Okay, the
Mhm.
Israeli left goes, great, we hate the settlers too. Now we have a reason to get them out. And then let's just say they get them out. Okay, this is my hypothetical going out. Now you have the international community going, okay, good. Wow, Israel's actually doing something that is in exact 180 of all the things that are damaging the relationship. And then you ruin the goals of Hamas because Hamas wants the Israeli international reputation to be ruined. So here's a thing that says, let's get the settlers out of Israel or out of the West Bank. That will increase their reputation on the world stage, which is the opposite of Hamas's strategic goals and in the interest of the Israeli left. Your whole
Again,
point is, well, it just wouldn't happen. It's like, okay, fine, you don't know that, and it's never been tried.
well, we're going to history again, but even when we know that when Israel's done things that the international community did approve of, very, very gleefully, it result because of the fact that it is like unilateral and it's not done with any expectation of change from leadership on the other side, is that it rewards the people who can the most easily claim that their actions led to it. So when Israel pulls out of Lebanon as a result of like pressure and from within and from without any concessions from Hezbollah or from the Lebanese government, then the UN clapped and cheered, and so did everyone else. And Israeli leftists, some of them did as well. But then they got Hezbollah. They got rockets getting fired into the south and like
Okay.
cross-border
Okay.
operations. So that's the
Right.
problem with like any kind of the way you're making it sound is you do make it sound unilateral, and that's the problem. Is that
Okay. This is the argument the settlers make about pulling out of the Sinai. It's like, well, we should never pull out of the Sinai. Well, historically, it's like, well, wait, but was pulling out of the Sinai good or not?
it was well, they pulled out with a deal, though. They pulled out with an enormous concession from the other side, which was that Egypt became the first Arab
Okay.
state to make peace with Israel.
Okay. Fair, and I'm not, and perhaps it would, I don't know, as part of the pull the settlers out of the West Bank. Yeah, I think that actually Trump could go and meet with well, whoever's reasonable enough to meet with what's his name? Not
Mahmoud
Wit.
Abbas.
Did Abbas, but
Yeah.
also Witkoff met with Hamas, didn't he?
Mahmoud Abbas.
Mahmoud Abbas is not Hamas.
No, he's not Hamas. Yeah, he's PA. He's
Yeah,
Fatah.
but I'm saying even Hamas.
Yeah.
I believe Witkoff met with Hamas. So you could
Yeah,
even,
okay.
so fine. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, obviously I'm not an expert, so I don't know if it should be unilateral or not. But to your point, okay, let's take what you're saying into account. It's not unilateral, but either way, and you could make the case that, again, in order to kickstart the negotiations, it's like, well, Israel's doing this thing that's so obviously antagonistic. We're not going to stop doing it unless we get a concession. It's like, no, 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 no. You need to stop doing this just because it's bad. And then when it's bad, you can stop poisoning the peace process, and then there can be real concessions. That's just another way to look at it. Now, you say, again, you keep saying it's a concession front. It's like, it's not a concession if it's the Israeli left who gets what they want. No more settlements in the West Bank.
Yeah, they get what they want on one side, but then it does
Well,
matter
and
what's
then
in exchange for it because again, like well,
agreed,
let's
fair,
go to a more
fair.
like broad thing. Like, so what do you think the majority of Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank want from this conflict?
To stop dying would be number one. And I think they need a sense of justice. They need to see. They will not want peace with Israel at all. Well,
Hmm.
first off, maybe they don't want peace with Israel at all, like potentially, and maybe Israel doesn't want peace with Gazans at all, and it's just going to be, whatever it is, and in which case, I don't want my tax dollars funding in either way. Then, but if there was a world in which there could be a peace between Israel and Palestine,
Hmm.
and if you look at if you look at the statements that preceded the end of the Troubles, it's like the British were saying this is the prelude to genocide. I think the exact quote was prelude to genocide and all this, like.
Hmm.
And yet, that worked out, arguably. And if there was to be peace, the Palestinians need to feel some sense of justice, and that would mean holding the far right to account. Like, no Israeli is going to want. I mean, no Israeli is going to really want peace unless Hamas leadership is brought to justice, and they should be, and they should be tried in the same court as the Ben Gvirs and the different people. So That's what I think.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, like stop dying is one, but then obviously, people in all different parts of the world are happy to keep dying if they're
Of
pursuing
course.
justice, right? Yeah. So,
Sense of justice now. The sense
yeah,
of justice. Do you agree that the Palestinians are seeking a sense
yes,
of
that's
justice?
primarily what they want is justice. Yes, before anything else, before peace. But yeah, yeah. And again, the same as Ukrainians want justice before anything else. So
Sure.
it's like, but the difference is that what the problem, I think, in any peace process that's happened in the past, whether it's taken a lot of American pressure or not that much, is that we still have not to this day ever had a Palestinian leader, let alone a popular one, um, really fully outline what that sense of justice is. We don't really know what they want in terms of justice. Sticking points in
Sure.
the past have been over Jerusalem, refugees. Obviously, Hamas and like the extreme wing will just say we want all of Israel destroyed, and any concession that's given to us, we will just keep using to that advantage, right? So if settlements are
Yeah.
gone, we're just going to use more space that's closer to the border to build up more military and to just like it'll be easier to attack Israel proper. Like that's how they would see it.
Okay.
So that's where you get into the risk. That's why I agree that settlements, like, it's weird to see it as a concession because they should never have gone there in the first place. We both agree on that. Like, they should, the fact that they exist at all, like, that already was the violation. It's not really a concession to give up on a violation. But the problem is that now that we're here, that is what very large factions, in fact, the most popular faction in the region, in Palestine, which is still Hamas, would use it as. And that's why I think the Israeli left is like they want to see the settlements gone, but they don't want to see it gone in a place where they inevitably see it as just more leverage and more advantage devolved to Hamas and people who don't want, whose view of justice means destroying Israel. Do you know what I mean when I'm saying that?
Not really. I mean, because you're implying that anything that Hamas would agree with is by definition bad because they could claim it as a success. So if we do
No.
any type of negotiation,
It depends on how it's achieved. Like that's why
sure.
with
Okay.
unilateral stuff, Hamas
Agree
can
on
claim
that.
that because of obviously like they're the biggest movement in Palestine. They're the most popular ones in the West Bank, and they're also the ones who keep saying it's our actions that are
Sure.
doing this. Like
Yeah,
our
yeah, okay.
war is making Israel hated by everyone. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I see your point. Whether cutting off aid to Israel to remove the settlements does not have to be unilateral action.
Hmm.
Like I can see you understand the conceptual argument for it of like kickstarting, showing good faith to kickstart the negotiation process
Hmm.
potentially. I'm not saying that's correct. Fine. The point about um fuck, what were you just saying? I was just thinking about it. Oh yes, there's no person. There doesn't seem to be people in Hamas we can negotiate with. Well, first off, that's not necessarily true because we've negotiated the hostage exchanges, so there is someone to negotiate with. Now, whether or not it's a leader who's willing to accept a long-term peace deal, that's your issue, which I think is fair.
Hmm.
The question is how we need to create the conditions for that leader to emerge. One of which is, well, we can get Netanyahu and the Likud out of power, who have been propping up Hamas. Right? Hamas is largely not a creation, but Hamas's existence is directly tied to Netanyahu and the people who prop them up. Do you agree on that?
I mean, you could get me to say it in that way, although I might say it for different reasons from you. Uh, I don't think that's entirely
That
true. No.
that Netanyahu, that when like Bezalel Smotrich says Hamas is an asset in the game of delegitimization. The longer Hamas is in charge, then we can say we have no one to have a peace process with. That is the
Yeah,
explicit
I know they believe
statement.
that kind of like I know they believe that to a
Yeah.
degree. It's just
Then
that like they when you say it's Netanyahu's creation or like the results of his I
I
don't
didn't
think that
not his
yeah, yeah.
creation. It's not
Okay.
no.
Okay.
Hamas is partly organic. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
But Netanyahu, there is a good chance that Hamas would not be in power if Netanyahu and his crew of misfits were not propping them up.
What do you mean propping them up? I don't know what you're
Well, like
specifically
allowing
referring to. Yeah.
what is the example that they always bring up, the Qatari money going to Hamas?
Oh, so this was in like what 2010s, mid 2010s
Yeah.
when they already were like the dominant power in Gaza, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Um
You agree that assisted in propping them up?
I mean, yeah, but I also would you have done it differently? That was humanitarian money when there was a crisis in Gaza. Like would you have stopped them from doing that?
It's a good question. I have to look into it more. When I believe like Benny Morris doesn't deny that this is in part of, this is part of Netanyahu's strategy. So
Yeah, Benny Morris
I
would
don't
say
know.
that, but I think
Would
that
Benny Morris say it's
yeah,
because the
the problem,
humanitarian aid?
yeah. But if you ask Benny Morris like what they should have done, is he
Yep.
wouldn't say block humanitarian aid money going in. He would say stop assuming. Yeah, Benny Morris would say stop assuming Hamas are pragmatists who just need to be shut up with stable humanitarian conditions in Gaza. He would say you should have destroyed them as soon as they came to power, like you should have done this war now, but in like 2008. That's probably what Benny Morris would say. That's like a lot of the
Sure. Okay,
Israeli
but
left leaders say that as well. Like Yair Golan says that,
sure. But the point is, um, Netanyahu and Smotrich and that crew view Hamas as an asset, and they said so. And they've taken steps to do that, as well as killing many of the Fatah leaders, the opposition party. It's kind of convenient that, I don't know how many it was, but uh, that it's perfectly plausible within the realm of possibility that when members of Fatah are killed, it's like, oh well, if it's part of the Netanyahu stated plan to delegitimize the leadership of Gaza, put the peace process in formaldehyde is the quote.
Mm-hmm.
That's all part and parcel of it. And so getting rid of Netanyahu would help. That's my broader point. Whether but what was I going to say? Yeah, creating the conditions for a leader to emerge like that. Like I think it is entirely possible that if the United States does take a serious action to say we're not going to unconditionally support Israel, we are going to give the left-wing Israelis and the Arabs in the region all the political ammunition they need to deal with the Hamas and the far right in Israel. I think that would be a good first step in creating the conditions. And the problem with looking at things historically is, well, if you need to do things that are unprecedented to make big changes. So that's my broader point. My point is I guess my broader point is or rather my observation is I think we're aligned on this much more so than I thought. I thought you were a far more Israeli simp.
No,
According to my comments.
Yeah, no, I don't think that no, that's really simple. I think the problem is that if the question is about the principle of using American pressure to push concessions out of Israel, or to get, if you just get to Israel, not even to concede much, but like to stop doing things that are just harmful to basically everyone apart from the right. Like, yeah, of course, I agree with that principle. I think the issue we're running into here is that we're maybe assuming that if America just like hammers down with these like very very disproportionate demands from Israel, like very like unprecedented levels of demands from Israel, then I think the problem is on the other side. I don't really know what America can do right now to produce like a solid peace partner, or to even encourage one out of the Palestinian side. I think that's the issue, because if we were in a reality where there was a popular Palestinian leader who was literally saying straight up, like, here is our demands for a two-state solution. Here's our proposal, like down to the nitty-gritty for Jerusalem, here's our solution to refugees, here's our recognition of Israel as a Jewish state in exchange for mutual for us, here's what we'll do in terms of militarization, here's what we want in terms of borders. And that could be worked with quite easily, then I would support America. And Israel still said no to that, then, and they kept voting for governments against that, then I would say America is in every position to just come down like an absolute fucking hammer. The problem is that the peace partner in Palestine has like a massive issue right now, because one, there's no future for Gaza until Hamas is gone. I think that's very clear. And in the West Bank, like, there is a leader there, but that leader is insanely unpopular. He's rejected a peace proposal before without making a counteroffer. And if they had an election in the West Bank tomorrow, Hamas would win in a landslide. So that's where I think there's an issue now, is that the problem is that I don't think any amount of concession from, or like demands from America towards Israel is going to accelerate that process, is going to deal with that issue.
That's where
Yeah.
I agree with everything, and that's where we just disagree. I think something needs to be taken to kickstart to create the conditions where those things can change. I mean, what is it? Who's the Syrian president now? The former Al Qaeda guy?
Al-Shara?
It's like it's entirely yeah, it's entirely possible that someone from Hamas could emerge, or who was part of Hamas, that could be a potential partner for peace. I mean, they already do negotiations for hostages. If you can go from Al Qaeda to the president of Syria, you can go from Hamas to
Yeah, but
someone who
so
believes in
Al
a two-state
Shara
solution.
literally like fought when he disconnected from ISIS, Al Qaeda. He fought with them, right? He purged them, so, and he made a new
Sure.
movement. So
Well,
yeah, that's
they
what I
were
mean.
okay.
Yeah.
It's demonstrating that it's possible. All right. Well, I think this was useful.
Okay. Listen, if there's anything else you wanted to ask me, or if there's any other like potential
What do you think of
disagreements we could
Kanye
go over, you
West's new
can.
song,
What the Hail Hitler?
Ninja Heil Hitler?
I don't honestly like. I'm usually quite a sucker for like catchy tunes. And it's the first time I've ever heard so many people call something catchy and me not getting it, me not thinking it's even catchy.
Oh, you know what
So
the worst thing about that
I
song
don't
is?
know.
It's not that he says Hail Hitler,
Hmm.
because any schizo on 4chan can make a song that talks about Hail Hitler. The worst part about that song is that it is objectively catchy.
I don't get it. I
You
don't know
might not find
why.
it that way.
I don't know why. I love like catchy hook is like the first thing for me for
I know,
music.
anthemic.
But for me,
My
that's
music
not. It's
taste was
not catchy.
described as
Yeah. But
anthemic. Interesting.
yeah, I don't get it. I don't know.
That's right. Well, all right. Well, would you be interested in? I interviewed a guy named Robert Morris. He's a geopolitical analyst who is very not anti-Israel fundamentally, but anti-Israel in 2025. Would you be interested in potentially having a conversation with him?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, you know nothing about him, but so
Yeah. I don't know anything
you're
about
open
him,
to
but I'll talk to
conversations like
anyone.
this.
You know.
That's
Yeah.
fair. Okay, all right, cool. Well, maybe I'll set something up and we can
What is
iron it out.
what's his appeal to you from him?
He seems less deranged than I am, and like JJ McCullough believes that he is a credible person, and JJ McCullough is pretty Israel simp, I would say, although he's woken up in the last few months, I would say, more so. Yeah, he's just pretty educated on things. He knows certainly far more than I do, so my ability to make whatever arguments I think I believe in are not that good. So it'd be very interesting for me to see two informed people who disagree discuss it. But yeah,
Okay.
he thinks Israel is. We should cut off aid to Israel and get out of the Middle East broadly. I think
The
from a
entire Middle
relations
East,
perspective.
even like ditch attempts to
Even
deal with
even our
the
largest
Gulf.
military base in Qatar.
Damn.
Is it Qatar or Qatar?
The Arabic pronunciation is like Qatar. So I think yeah. So yeah, it would be Qatar. Yeah, just say Qatar.
Qatar? I don't know.
Just think about like box
Qatar sounds
cutter.
better.
Just say that. Yeah. Qatar does sound better.
Got
It
it.
doesn't really matter.
All right. Well, I think that'd be an interesting discussion. So we'll I'll reach out to you at some point and we can maybe set something up.
Okay. Well, it was nice meeting you,
Cool.
and I'm sure if there's anything else that pops up in your mind, we can talk soon. All right.
Yes, sir. All right. Godspeed.
All right. Take care, man. Bye bye.
Peace, peace, peace.
Okay. That was interesting. I always get a little bit fucking anxious when someone who I feel like we disagree on quite a lot is saying, I think we agree. But you just have to go with what's actually in the conversation rather than assumptions about what they're saying, you know? Yeah, I'm just turning my camera back on. Shut up. Fuck. Whew. But we'll see. I think he's the kind of guy that like it would take quite a few conversations before we actually like figure out where the big rifts are. Like it'll take a bit of poking around. Tell us more about the Israeli left he was talking about. The problem is that the Israeli opposition is not just the left. There's also like the centrists who, the centrists are, I don't even, because the idea of left and right is in Israel really just means it's nothing to do with economics or fucking gender issues or anything like that. It's like left and right in Israel usually just means how you view the conflict. Like you either think a Palestinian state and peace is possible, or you're on the right and you think it's not, it's never happening. We just need to take what we can from these intransigent fucks. Like that's what the divide is. But I always wonder, what's a centrist mean? Like, does a centrist just mean like 50-50? I don't even, but maybe I think what I get from centrism is like the idea that they think there's no peace partner foreseeably or like right now, but that they don't want to but they also don't want to let the settlements continue and keep doing things that would make it impossible forever. I don't know. Fuck knows, man. 50-50. We still have Ogre Boy coping about the amount of concessions Hamas is willing to make. We'll give up some political power, bro. Well, whilst disarmament is still a red line for them. What would happen then? What would happen then? Israel withdraws from Gaza. Hamas steps down from the government, but they still have their arms. Interesting. I don't know. Fucking. Tell Ogre Boy to call into Discord. He's not doing it. He's a coward. He talks to Hutch for whatever reason, but probably because Hutch is nice, and I'm not nice. Not to people like that, anyway. Were there 30 Palestinians killed near the aid station? So it's a new story. It's unfolding. There's disputes on either side. I have no fucking idea what you want to do. Wait till tomorrow, okay? Just wait a day. Fucking breaking news, man. They talk to Hutch because they think he's uninformed. I mean, they probably think that, but Hutch seems to know quite a bit, you know? He seems like he's... Like, Hutch has said things that, like, I didn't know. So, he's told me things about history that I don't know, so can't be that uninformed. God. Not to big myself up or anything, by comparison. But he's also a chill dude. Laid back, bro. He knows more than it looks. Well, people see the baldy head and they're like, this guy, information must just bounce off of it. Well, really, this stream got fucking 1,300 viewers for watching that dude. You talked because you thought we were closer aligned and just had some, quote, disagreements, yeah? And then you found out that he wasn't a terror simp. Oh, no, 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 no. Bruh. Dylan Burns video with Vadim. Do I really want to watch this? The fuck? Do I? I don't think I do. If I do, it's over video games though. I'm not doing this on my fucking Todd. Hell no. I can't enjoy this with no moral support. There ain't no heckin' way. Run number 2. It's actually number... Thank God. New character in Dylan versus Vadim peak loner content. I think it is, you know? I'm still enjoying a little break from taking things too seriously in life. Fuck me. Don't for your health. Well, what? If I do it, I'm working. It's fine, man. I don't give a fuck. It's part of my work, man. I'm just doing my job here. I'm just doing my job. Also, I wasn't joking when I said that I was actually blazing, okay? Because yesterday, all right? yesterday, yesterday I was having a fucking Gooner gamer sesh, okay? And when I say Gooner, I just mean in the gaming sense, not in the Walloper sense. So, and also because I've learned